Hey, everybody. We are so excited today because we are talking about a lot of really awesome stuff in regards to 2025 hurricane season and predictions and conversations about what we think is going to happen with the LRC, as well as the 2025 severe weather season. So we are joined by a group of individuals that are here right now in our group. Here they are. We've got Gary Lezak, we've got James, we've got Brian, we got Bill, and we got Jim. This is going to be a fun conversation, Gary. I'm so excited to be doing this with you today and all of our friends. So I'll let you kind of take it away.
All right. Thank you, Kaylee. And guys, thank you for joining us. And let's have an open discussion. We're going to go over the Global Predictor, the hurricane season forecast. We'll go over the severe weather outlooks that have happened and what's going to happen and what's sort of in progress going to happen this weekend. And then I'd love to have a discussion with anything you guys are interested in. So, but let's get started. And I would like to start by showing you what I've been doing an analysis of the last 3 or 4 days. I've been sort of a mad scientist. And so hold on just a second. Let me call up my screen of the hurricane forecast guide. Okay, watch this. Go take a look at this. And if you can see this is the hurricane forecast accuracy from 2022 to 2024. It's extremely important for those of you that have been following along for years, and I know a couple of you guys have, and if you're just new to it as well, there's an independent evaluating system called the Barcelona Supercomputing Center data, and they have been analyzing hurricane seasons for the last few years, and there's about 30 different organizations that get tracked, and Weather 2020 is one of them. You can see the forecasts are evaluated for named storms, hurricanes, major hurricanes, and ACE. The accuracy rating there's a couple of different systems we use. One is that each one of these is weighted equally, so 25% for each category. One is 60% heavily weighted in ACE. The reason for it being heavily weighted in ACE stands for accumulated cyclone energy, and it's a great way to measure the entire hurricane season in one number. How active really was it? It's not how devastating one storm was, it's how active the hurricane season was. So there's a little bonus system as well, but it's based on data, so anybody else can come up with these same conclusions. The 3-year averages of 2022 to 2024 with the ACE weighted heavier system shows Weather 2020 dominant number one over 3 years. So just based on this chart alone, Weather 2020 is the most accurate hurricane season forecaster. So you can see there, and then here are the list of those with the rating number. You see, it's not just that we're number one. Look how far ahead we are of the competition. In the equal weight, where each one of those categories is weighted equally, you have a different list here, but you can see Weather 2020, the most accurate. And then our competitors might be like Weather Bell. You've probably heard of them. They're way down here. And so as you can see, our forecast on the equal weight. And then there's the list, as you can see there. And then on the just named storms prediction only, we're number one. And then all these other competitors, there's more of them because some of them don't do ACE, but these are all the competitors, and Weather 2020 is number one. 3-year ACE only, it looks also good. You know, Weather 2020 is winning in every single category, except for until you get to about when you go to 2022 just named storms. Notice how we're in 4th place just for the named storms. And in 2023, we're in 3rd place for just this is for the ACE accuracy. But basically, you can see what's happening here. This is all the data, the raw data. So okay, you can take that back out. But it's an interesting study, and we're about to publicize that. So I'd like to first see if there's any feedback from you guys. What do you does that make sense? Tell me what your thoughts are, and let's just have a discussion on what you just saw on that accuracy.
It totally makes sense to me looking at the data. But just an observer sitting in the back, I guess.
Right. Anybody else, any thoughts, any initial thoughts on it? Anything?
Well, I can tell you myself, when I share some of this data that you've accumulated to several people that might have some summer rentals, or say a secondary house that's down in Florida, in which just this last year I had actually shared some of the data with them in 2024, and they live just outside of Tallahassee, down on the panhandle of Florida. And of course, we were looking at these storms coming in right there at the curve of Florida, and they had roughly 2 months to go down, make sure everything is secured, and made believers out of them with this data you provide. So it is very straightforward. I agree with Bill on that, and it's fantastic data that we can share with other people.
Yeah, thank you guys. Very interesting. So the competitors out there, there's a big difference. It's not just that we put out a forecast, as you guys know, for the number of hurricanes, the number of major hurricanes, that ACE score, and which can be complex, and then the number of named storms, all 4 categories. Other companies try to do that. And what the data we just shared with you, those other companies that attempt to do that are not using the one big thing that is the biggest first thing that they should be looking at in their predictions, is something they don't understand, and it's called the LRC. So the LRC sets up every year, the weather pattern is cycling, and every year around October 5th or 6th or 7th, that is considered to be a day one of the LRC each year. And we can go over some of those reasons if you want to. But then here we are in March going into April. We're in the 5th cycle of this year's pattern. It's about a 40 to 41 day cycle this year, and roughly 6 weeks, give or take a couple of days, but really the lower end, 40 days is really what works. Although at times it's been 39, 38 to 44 is how the cycling pattern is working. So the pattern is cycling like that. So what happened in 2022 when we predicted the lowest number of named storms of any of those competitors? The first thing that they should look at is what happens in October and November when the new LRC sets up. So in October and November of 2021, before the 2022 season, on October 5th, there was not one more named storm, not one more tropical storm or hurricane. It completely cut off. So the first indication that 2022 was going to be quieter was that, there's other factors, guys. Sea surface temperatures, a lot of other factors. El Nino, La Nina. Is it going into an El Nino or a La Nina? Which we go over why that is, and other factors. But the number one thing they should do is look at that. And so we forecasted 10 to 14 tropical systems that season, and the rest of them predicted a hyperactive season. And I'm talking everybody else. As of October 5th of the next hurricane season, 2022, there were 10 named storms October 5th. And I was like, wow, our 10 to 14 named storms we're going to be a slam dunk huge winner. And the ACE was like 75, and that was our prediction, 75, right on October 5th. What happened? There were 4 more hurricanes late October through November of that year. Mm-hmm. What does that mean for the next year? That means the first thing you should look at is, oh my gosh, it's going to be more active the next year. There ended up being 14 named storms. We still got the 10 to 14 forecast. The ACE ended up being 95. We predicted 75. All the rest of them had 150s and 200s, just so you know. And then we got to 2023, and we went up higher, and they all went lower. So they made the wrong call again because they're not looking at this one thing. And that's really the point I'm trying to make. If you wonder how is weather 2020 the world's most accurate hurricane forecast system in the world now, that is the first thing. It's the most important thing. It's the LRC. And so, and let me tell you, we learn more every year about it. So anyway, that's the hurricane season numbers. Since we're doing hurricanes, we're going to get to the Global Predictor and the severe weather PDF, but let's just go over a little bit of how we did this, and I'll go through the guide real quick. And let me share my screen. So let's look at this. In the Hurricane Forecast Guide, for those of you who did purchase the bundle, this is available on our site right now. We're going to publicize a couple of these things, but basically I talk about an introduction. If you knew, what would you do? Like Jim just said, if you knew Tallahassee was going to have these threats of these hurricanes and you knew when they were going to happen, what would you do? You could prepare better. Lives will be saved in the future when more and more people use the LRC, because we truly did predict Beryl, Debbie, Ernesto in the Atlantic. In fact, the Ernesto, this on the left, you can see right there, that is our prediction, and this is where it was. That's pretty good when you do it 5 months out, as you know. And when it starts developing, I'm like, is it going to track right over where we drew in that symbol? And they do all of the time. And so anyway, so these are the predictions. Then there's the list. The first one this year is going to be named Andrea, then Barry, then Chantal, then Dexter. And these cycle every 7 years. So there's 6 of them. So 7 years from now, it'll be this list again. If any of these get retired, then there'll be a new name in there. But some of these names you might have seen in other years. This is our prediction for this year that we're about to publicize either today or early next week. And I've been waiting for a reason. I've been waiting for today's talk with you guys and for other reasons. And as you can see, why are we predicting 20? The first thing after October 5th. Here's what happened October 5th. Hurricane Milton. Tropical Storm Nadine. Then Oscar was a hurricane. After Oscar was Pauline in the Atlantic. After Pauline was Rafael, a Category 3 hurricane in the middle of the Gulf of Mexico. And then Sarah. There were 6 after October 5th. And another thing to make a point out, is it the end all end all? Is that 100% certain there's going to be a wild season ahead? No. Out of 25 years that I've analyzed, about 20 out of 25, it does work. But about 5, there's other things that must be going on that we'll identify that isn't a for sure that just because there are 6 named storms, it's going to be this active. However, as I said, it's the first thing, and there's about a 70 to 80% probability we're going to be right. 17 to 23 is our forecast. The others are just coming in. For example, AccuWeather just came out with theirs a couple of days ago. You may have seen it. 13 to 18 named storms. So they're already, it's one of the reasons I've been waiting a little bit. I've been waiting for some of these others to come out because I don't want them to see ours because I think they're paying attention to us. Then the number of hurricanes, number of major hurricanes, and then the ACE, way above average. We have never predicted that high, and so I'm expecting it to be significant. The way I did this,
Gary, can I ask a question really quick? Can you touch on why you think that ACE is going to be a lot higher than you've ever predicted?
Because of the 6 named storms and the strength of them. Hurricane Milton was a major hurricane October 5th to 10th. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if you guys saw the GFS that actually predicted a hurricane today of all days. I might pop that in there in a second. But it's not going to happen in April, as we all know. It shows you how the GFS makes mistakes. But the fact that there were 6 of them and a couple major ones, including Rafael on November the 8th, So the water temperatures are warmer than average, but they're always warm, guys. The difference between 89 and 88 degrees is not going to make a big difference on a hurricane strengthening. But it's just one of those things. But that's why. That's
All right, thanks, Gary.
Yeah, it's the biggest reason. This is the most likely hotspot. And then what we do, and you can get this report, I called this the higher confidence predictions because you can see this is our first prediction here, and it's based on Raphael. I call it the Raphael part of the pattern. Okay, this Raphael became a Category 3 hurricane. That's where Raphael was. So just like I drew in that symbol, I draw this in where it was at one point, and I'll almost guarantee there will be a system right near this spot. Now, if it's early in the season in June, it might come over here if it's a June week system. But just know if it's August, and this is time for mid to late August, then more likely it's going to come this way. So somewhere in here is the risk for Raphael. This one is the Hurricane Milton part of the pattern, and Sarah. Milton was right there, and Milton tracked this way. That's why I drew this in. If you're wondering, if you ever see my predictions, just know they're not just based on climatology. Okay, it's based on this is where Milton tracked. But more likely, if it's August 25th to September 9th, if a reflection of Milton's forming, it's going to come right into here. So that's the most likely spot. And Sarah, by the way, tracked like this. Sarah went over here. It died because it went over the Yucatan Peninsula. And this is like a late November storm. Sarah went like this, and guess where it tracked? Right over Milton, right through there. So just something to know that that's a possibility. These other areas that go for all these things need to be monitored, but this is really my main target for this system. Then this one was Oscar. Oscar was right there. So it's called the Oscar part of the pattern. Of course, my peers, the meteorologists out there, what are you talking about, the Oscar part of the pattern? What? No way. That's impossible. But I think you guys know what I'm saying here. It's the part of the pattern that produced Oscar way back in October 20th, 19th. And yet the chance of it happening here is pretty significant. Now, while Oscar was forming, there was another system. It wasn't a named storm. This is just what we call weather seeds that sprouted in the storms. Oscar could be a weather seed, so could something that's not named. So if you look at this, Oscar and this risk are closely related. So, and they're in the same time frame. So there's probably only going to be one. If there are two, there could be one up here or developing while one's also down here. So we'll just have to see about that. And then this one never really got strong. It's the Nadine part of the pattern, but it's strong enough and it's had some follow-up indicators that I think there's going to be something in here. And then in the update, we'll put an update out as we get closer to hurricane season. I might commit to where this one might go. And also in the updates that I'll have, I might add arrows where they're going to make landfall like I've done in the past and been pretty successful at it. These mid-season ones have a different date range. If you look at your guide, early to mid-July, know that these are the same ones. I took the symbols off, and then I did early season, and guess what? They're actually the same ones, all right? This is how the LRC works. It's basically every 6 weeks, this is going to return and cycle through. And so, okay, I'll come back out. And so you have a cycle 1 version of all 5 of those indicators, a cycle 2 version of all 5 of those indicators, and a cycle 3 version during hurricane season of all 5 of those indicators that are closer to hurricane peak season. So it's pretty complex, guys. I'd like to hear your take on it, because if you've been following it for more than a year, maybe you already know what I'm talking about, but it's still, you can imagine what the PhDs, the other meteorologists out there around the nation, when they see stuff like this, they don't know what I'm talking about. Does it make sense to you guys? Tell me what you guys all think about that. And as you know, as I said, one more point. The others give you one snapshot, one page, one PDF, maybe 2 pages long, and they talk about other analog years. They don't even know about the LRC, and then they end up wrong, as I just showed you on those charts. So anyway, I'll open the floor if you guys have any questions or discussion on that.
Yeah, I've been kind of starting to track it myself. The LRC started beginning of last hurricane season and tracked all the storms during the season, and they were falling within 2 to 3 days of each one of the cycles that came through. And I've got a couple other people that follow us on Facebook that are starting to get interested in all this LRC stuff as well.
Cool. And what do they think initially?
At first they're kind of like, okay, does it really work? Does it really work? And then as we've been tracking it, like through last year, we were seeing them starting to form well before anything was actually showing up on any of the models or anything.
Right. Cool.
So I'm brand new to this. I just started in February. Farm in Iowa and have several farms across the state. I'm really interested in the hurricanes seem to pump a lot of moisture up, particularly if they come into the Gulf, close to Texas. They pump a lot of moisture up to us during the summer. So right now there's a lot of buzz by other meteorologists about the drought we have, and particularly central West Texas and on up into the plains, and how we're going to have a drought this summer. And I know, Gary, you've mentioned that you think there won't be a drought as much, but looking at your maps at the moment for Iowa, the Dakotas, Southwest Minnesota, Northeast Nebraska, where they were really flooding last spring, it appears they're going to be really dry.
Right.
So do you see the hurricanes pumping a lot of moisture up to us?
That's something that I haven't done an analysis of yet. So as we get towards hurricane season, we get to June 1st with that update. That's something that I could probably add into the report. I mean, what I'd like to do is, okay, so I think the Hurricane Milton part of the pattern, as we call it, will be happening around August 15th to 30th, whatever the dates are, or July. When it happens in August, what is the pattern? The LRC lets us know what the pattern is going to look like when these things come in. Is that favorable for bringing it up across Texas, Oklahoma, into Kansas, Missouri, and Iowa? Or is it going to die down there and never get your way?
Right.
There is something there that I have not really forecasted far ahead of time yet. It's not one of the things that I've done, but I think that I might want to challenge myself and the LRC and Weather 2020 to showcase how there's an increased probability during this date period that you could get hit late August when this system develops. So that might be something I put in there. And then you made a good point. I know we're going to get to the Global Predictor, but I want to show you all, and some of you have probably seen this graphic, but let me just go to my hold on just a second, Kaylee. Okay, let's come in here. And there's a Global Predictor that I really want to have a good discussion with you guys on. But one of our products, when you purchase this product, it'll just say My Weather Vision Dashboard. And what it does on our site is really cool. And over 100 farmers have actually bought this tool, and they're using it. So you can just put in the date range in here. So if I put in, you want to know what's going to happen from April 15th to the end of September, let's say. Because you remember what happens at the end of September is the new LRC sets up. Oh, I've got a forecast all the way for a year ahead. We can go a year ahead, but just know the pattern changes by then. But if I go click apply here, and I put in Iowa, and just Iowa, and you can go down to all the counties that are in Iowa. You can go down to a county if you want to. But now I push apply. Now it's doing the forecast from April 15th to September 30th for the state of Iowa. And you got high temperatures, low temperatures, and you've got this slider bar that you can use. But what basically it does when you go to precipitation, concerned about drought, here's what our model is showing at this moment. And there's a couple things to look at. So this is what I like to show, and you can click on these three dots and go full screen. So there's Iowa. And there's not a tool like this that exists in the world. It's another thing that Weather 2020 has that's sitting out there. As you know, a lot of you guys know that we've been pushing this out for a long time, but there isn't anything else in the world that actually has a forecast where you can just come in here and play around with it. But look what it shows. All of Iowa at less than average rainfall is what it shows, all right now. And why does it show that? Just so you know, it's blending cycle 1, 2, 3, and 4 together. So this has basically been the trend for 4 cycles, but there was a wet cycle in there. Is it possible that April and May and June could tap into that wet cycle and this will be a little off? Yes, but 3 out of the 4 versions we have are more like this. So it shows up here 70% of average in Northwest Iowa, 100% of average here. Oh, I see. Look, I forgot to pan up. You got to remember to do this. There are a few spots that go above average, and that's South Central Iowa, 110% of average. So you can see half of Iowa is really 90% to 100% of average. So adequate rainfall is likely based on our LRC model. But so there's that product. And you click this to go back out. And then on this one, it shows you when there will be storm systems. So you can see in May, a storm at the beginning of May, very likely in Iowa. Then here's another storm around May 2nd, 3rd, 1st, 2nd. Oh, this is May. This is mid-April. Mid-April, a significant storm and a severe weather risk. And then you can see every time it goes above 100, it shows a storm. A storm there on June 12th, a storm on July 6th, to this big thing at the end of September. It's probably related to this thing. But anyway, do you guys like this product?
It's interesting so far. Talk about the winds, and from the winds, I'm looking at derechos, things like that.
Oh, okay, derechos. Okay, so for winds, let me go back in the Global Predictor so it's ready for when I come back to it. Because this is a pretty cool little tool that we want to do some feedback with you guys with. On the whoops, there we go. On the winds, for the severe weather guide, here we go. So let's go over our severe weather guide. Just like the hurricane forecast guide. This is the late March updated version. Every cycle I'm planning an update. So what I do is I put the ones that already happened down below and talk about it. So this, when you see an outlook, we have, just like the Storm Prediction Center, we show a yellow and the red areas. And we do a third shade when we think it might be significant. This is the forecast for our March 14th to 17th forecast from 35 days before. So we had a 35-day outlook. Then the Storm Prediction Center came out with their outlook and it starts looking like this. And then it happens. And every one of these dots is either a flooding, a tornado report. You see all the tornadoes right in here. A flooding, a tornado report, or a large hail or a damaging wind report. And so far this season, we've been 3 for 3 in our predictions. This is the one for this weekend, March 24th to 31st. If you got the guide, you've known it was coming. And by the way, I draw these in, okay, through extensive analysis of the LRC. And so, as you likely know, there's a lot of science to what we do. And so, why did I cut it off here? I cut it off here because I thought it was going to be, it's March, so I thought it'd be too cold. So the risk actually does now extend up into here for tomorrow. And, but it's because the Arctic oscillation has gone positive, and so it's a little warmer. But that's why I cut it off here. So you can almost see I did it. So it looks like the risk is going to go up a little farther. But we'll see what happens, because there is a strong cold front coming through. It may push the risk right down into here. In fact, the latest risk is for that area. So when you see these risks for March 24th to 31st, this is what came out a few days ago. This is the risk from the Storm Prediction Center for day 6, or is for day 7. And look how it's like related directly to what we predicted 50 days ahead. This is the 50-day forecast now. This is the next one, April 13th to 18th. We're watching this area. And then April 23rd to May 1st. What is this? Think about 40 days later. That is this one returning. Okay, March 14th. 40 days later, we're going to be around April 24th. And so that's how it works. So that's where this forecast for this is going to be a significant one, because it already produced a severe weather outbreak. You can see here on December 28th, whatever. So if we're running about a derecho, this would be the one that I would be most concerned with. This is related to that really strong surface low pressure area, and this could be a derecho producer. So when you see a significant outbreak like this, that's something to watch. Not just a tornado outbreak, we could have high winds, and that does include Iowa, as you can see. So,
sure.
But that's how I would interpret this. Okay, we got to watch this, especially this date range, and right down the middle of it, April 26th, 27th is probably the most likely. But by the way, the first outlook said, I think I had April 27th to May 3rd. So as that happened, March 14th to 17th, I adjusted the dates. So from the first outlook you might have gotten to now, it's the same outlook, but I adjusted the date slightly. And then this is the May 3rd to May 10th outlook, the May 24th to May 30th outlook, and then June 1st to June 8th. This is the return of that one. I made it a little different shape because the way I've experienced severe weather, this is now the June setup. So, and notice I almost have it in a shape that would be derecho. Why do I say that? Because see how it's tracking the northwest to southeast. If that's the case, right, you get a high wind event, and you know how they go. They usually go like that as soon as you get to June. So this could be a derecho. I haven't put that wording in there, but that's how I would, now that you brought it up, it's a good point. And then there's the one for June. And this is the first year I'm extending them into July. The same risks. By the way, here's that December 28th, May 14th, April 23rd outbreak. Again, June 1st outbreak coming back. But I have it way up here because what happens in July, the jet stream retreats to the north.
Mm-hmm.
So there. I'm talking too much.
No, but you're right. They look like derechos coming from northwest, southeast. So.
Right. Yeah. So that's our severe weather. That's our severe weather guide that's out, and for the first time ever, we're updating them to provide more value for you guys. So it's not like here's your forecast for March. Usually, in the past few years, we make our forecasts in February, and then it's out there, and they come through. They're accurate. Over 90%, right? 90%. And when there's any criticism out there from the other, I could come up with words for those people, but I'll save it. The others that try to forecast the weather, I could say some. Yes, Jim.
So, quick question. Now, since we've kind of transitioned into that neutral phase and into La Nina, possibly a weak one, is that going to shift any of this severe weather that you have in that report back to the west any, or have you given that much of a thought, since it's a little bit of a change what we thought going into late winter into early spring?
Yeah, it's a good question, Jim. What's happening is we sort of had a weak La Nina trying to develop during the winter. And if you watch my reports I put out every Tuesday on our weather intelligence report, I talk about it a lot. La Nina never really materialized. However, La Nina did sort of, I think there was an influence on the pattern for the winter. I expected if it goes to neutral that the precipitation patterns would shift west. And that's why it's a little wet over Kentucky. That could shift over Iowa. I would not be shocked at all if that's what happens in May. And all of a sudden you get too much rain. But that is happening. That's already calculated into the risks I put in. I already somewhat predicted that it was going to be neutral season. And so that's already calculated into what we're seeing. Now, as I said, these have been coming in over 90% accurate. And the first one might be 35 days. The second one might be 50 days. And by the last one, we're at 150-day forecast that it's still accurate. I don't like to change them much because they're really, I will change it if I see something new. For example, let's say there's an outbreak next week after this one. There's some of the models have set up for next week. I don't have that in our forecast guide. If it literally does produce a significant severe weather episode, I'll analyze, and that might be an addition that goes into the report for when that returns in May or June. So those are the kinds of things you can expect in the updates. But I'll say it again. We're sharing with you this report. No one else does this because they don't understand the LRC. You have to know that the pattern cycling to even try to do this. And then just know I grew up in Southern California and I was obsessed with 500 millibar maps as a kid. And at 15 and 16 years old, I started, really being able to analyze these weather patterns. And then it was 1987, 1988. You might be able to see behind me on my wall there. That's the winter of 1987, 1988. That's the year I discovered the LRC because Oklahoma City had a foot of snow on the upper left, you can see there. And then off to the upper right, that barbecue grill with all the snow drift on top of it, they had another 1 foot of snow. And that's when I was like, wait a second. And I noticed that the weather pattern was cycling, and the patterns looked the same. Here's one pattern. And then 40 days later, it looked like this, like almost the same. Okay. And 40 years later, here we are. So you're all in on the secret, I like to say.
That's awesome. I've been following this since I met you, Gary, when you explained it to me. And I will tell you right now, I look at it no other way at this point when I'm looking at what's setting up and, oh, hey, the same low pressure center has now moved over, the plains, like Kansas City area. How many times now that you just showed that's now the forecast as we move forward that you just predicted. So I think it's pretty amazing. Do either one of you that haven't said anything yet want to have any questions before we wrap things up for today?
And I'm going to do the Global Predictor next. Anything, guys?
So I'm going to jump in here again real quick. And of course, being in agriculture for the last 25 years, I also started following Gary, being a West Central Missouri guy. I was actually one that actually put in my guess on what his method of the LRC could be called back in the day. And of course, Gary chose the LRC for the Lezak Recurring Cycle. And but one thing that, and especially with Bill being in that agriculture industry, one thing that I'm finding in my area is that the dashboard is an incredible tool for these guys to be able to take a look at when these storm systems are coming up. I do a weather ag report every day at 4:04 here for the local radio station. We talk about like right now, guys are out there getting some last minute spraying done. I give them a dry period. Hey, you're going to need to get out in the field between April 4th and April 9th. We have a big system coming in the middle of the month. They've been following me now for the last 3 years, and I'm having people coming up to me and asking me, hey, when is our dry spell going to be this spring? And it's such an incredible, useful tool, especially on the ag side of things. So I definitely encourage you, Bill, to take a look at the dashboard if you haven't already. Man, there's a ton of great information out there, probably more so than the Global Predictor right now. And I think you're going to get to that here in a minute. I do have a few questions on how to present that, because we've had a lot of people in our area get the Global Predictor. There's mixed reactions with it because they think this is some miracle forecast for 6 months out. And when you're off by 2 degrees, they come at me and they say, hey, this Global Predictor was off, 2 degrees. Well, you can explain it better than I can, Gary, but we have to educate them that this is a more of a trending apparatus, that we can get tons of information from it. But I've had some mixed reviews on that Global Predictor.
Right. Well, because it's like first of all, you're getting a forecast 3, 4, 5, 6 months out. And if you're getting married in May, in fact, let me show you the Global Predictor real quick. And then guys, please go at it. Let me know what you think. But here's the Global Predictor. And this is just $5.99 a month or $49.99 a year, and you get peace of mind for $5.99. And every bride in the world wants to know the weather forecast. So let's say they're going to Toronto, Canada, and you go right into Zoom in.
Hold on just a second, Gary. I got to pull it up. There we go.
Okay, so here's the Global Predictor. So anywhere in the world, all right. And so let's say we're going to Toronto, Canada. You just zoom in. You can go right down to somebody's house if you want to. And you're going to visit this person right here. You click on it, and you got it gives you the address. And here's a forecast for April. Blues mean below average. Reds and oranges are above average. So it gives you a trend of a below or above. And then if you want the July 4th forecast, it's going to be 78 degrees for a high. And up in Canada, they do Celsius. You click on degrees C, 25.6 degrees. Go back to Fahrenheit. And so you got highs and lows, low temperatures, snow, and precipitation. So this will be a stormier stretch. You might want to go there this week. When you see a whole long stretch of days that are dry, it's likely going to be a good week. If you see a whole long stretch of days with wet, it doesn't mean it's going to rain every one of those days, but it probably will be right in the middle. And that's how the LRC works. So this 23rd and 24th day, most likely, just like a severe weather outbreak, from the 20th to the 30th, there's going to be a couple storm systems, but right down the middle of that is the most likely time frame. So you can imagine a bride going to Florida. In fact, someone last night at dinner showed me they're going to get married on May 25th, and they're going to like Panama City, I think, somewhere in there. You go right down to the beach, and they're going to get married right there. And here's their forecast. On May 25th, it's going to be 77 for a high, a little bit below average, low 73, so a little muggy, and it's not going to rain on their wedding day. So at dinner last night, he was like, oh my gosh, we're just so excited that it's not going to rain on our wedding day on the 25th. And I said, look, see how there's a whole bunch of days around it that are dry. So I'm expecting them to be on the beach, and their forecast will have been right. But that's how you use a Global Predictor. And for somebody who wants to get real specific for every single day, how accurate is this going to be? It might be 50% accurate. 50% accurate. All right? So here, Kaylee, I'll come back out.
So I want to say that before the Global Predictor was, the Global Predictor, and it was just, you were giving me your tools. I was getting married May 25th, 2013. And I didn't my wedding was outside in Alabama, and in May, it can storm at any point in Alabama. And I was trying to figure out whether I spent $5,000 on a tent for my entire reception or not. And we kept looking at the LRC and what you would do with the Global Predictor now. And I didn't get a tent, and it was 83 and sunny, and it was perfect, like it said. And we were tracking that from, back in February prior to the wedding. So
in 2013, I remember I said, let's use the LRC, and we made the prediction for that. So
it is invaluable.
Yeah. And fast forward, Kaylee, when I said 50% accurate, we have to understand the GFS model, the European model, 10 days out, 15 days out, those models are accurate only 30 to 35%. That's it. So when we say 50%, somebody using a global predictor, well, if we get it right and 1 million people got that forecast, 500,000 are probably going to go, wow, they got it right. The other 500,000 are going to wonder, that wasn't right. Well, it's still more accurate than the GFS or European model at 10 days out. So what do you guys think? What do you guys think of that?
Pretty amazing.
Now, I can tell you just from my experience. Now, I had the Global Predictor. I had the dashboard. I did not have 2024 hurricane report, but I have a couple buddies that live down in Tampa. Now, something else that you can use that Global Predictor for, James, since you're in that tropical area, was he asked me, he goes, what do you think about Tampa? And since I didn't have the hurricane report, even though I had the dashboard, I used a Global Predictor, and I went down to a stretch of 4 days in the month, I believe it was in August, and what it showed for precipitation was for Tampa was 2.5 inches one day, 3.5 the next day, 4 inches the third day. And I told them, I said, I have a feeling you're going to be kind of probably in the bullseye of this thing, because they've already had some spaghetti models out, so on and so forth. And it went just north of Tampa and produced just an enormous amount of rainfall. And I used all that based on the Global Predictor. So there are great advantages to the Global Predictor to have it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a good tool to be able to have out there, to where you can be able to go and schedule a vacation way months and 6 months out and know that you got a pretty good chance of these days are going to be nice and these days are not.
Yeah, I'm pretty excited about it there, Gary, because I met Bryce there at the Farm Con, and I farm up in Nebraska, but I found myself with my other job, I'm doing crop insurance. So I'm down here in Lawrence, Kansas, and I got 12 states. So I'm using it to find out when I should go back home to farm and the dry time when it works there. But I'm also been using it for funding, like in Texas and stuff with the cotton and stuff like that. Should we keep it commercial or go assigned? So I'm kind of excited to use this program. So
cool. And then let me just do one more demo. Okay, let's go full screen again. I just want to show you. Let's just go down what Jim was suggesting to one of these islands way out here. Let's go to Puerto Rico. And you go into San Juan, Puerto Rico, and you click on someplace there. And then you go to the hurricane season, August, precipitation. Okay, so when is the most likely storm based on just the Global Predictor? It looks like the 23rd to the 27th has 5 days in a row, all right? And it's got somewhat higher amount, 63/100ths of an inch here is what it predicts. So right in here, 23rd to the 27th in Puerto Rico. In September, precipitation, the 6th to the 9th. So we have the 6th to the 9th, and back to August again, 6th to 9th of September, and the 23rd to the 27th of August. Then I have not done this. We're going to just do an experiment here. I go to the hurricane season forecast. So late August or early September, and then you go look at our risks, and there's a mid to late August one, and Puerto Rico's in there. Okay, Puerto Rico's in there. It's looking for the first time. Then you go to this one, early September, maybe not that one, and then here's one for September 6th to 20th. So maybe that's September 6th period. So you can see how the Global Predictor is showing what has happened with our algorithms, and then you can marry it to what is happening in our forecast. And I haven't done that yet. So I haven't put the two together completely yet, but I just know it, as Jim said, that it gives you an idea. If you see a big wet system in Florida and it's September, it's probably not just an afternoon thunderstorm. It's very likely to be a tropical system.
Very much so.
Awesome. Well, I want to thank you guys for all being here with us today. This was a really, really awesome discussion, and hopefully we'll be doing more of these. We lost Brian there for a second, so I had to remove him, but I want to thank you guys, Bill, Jim, James, Brian, who we just lost, for joining in the discussion and being a part of it. So thank you guys so much.